India's internet is being reshaped quietly but decisively. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology released draft amendments to the IT rules on March 30th, 2026, inviting public feedback till April 14th. The changes aim to strengthen oversight of online platforms, requiring them to comply with government advisories and expanding rules to cover news and current affairs content posted even by regular users and creators. The government says these are clarificatory and meant to ensure a safer, more accountable internet, though they have triggered debate over their wider impact. The IT rules have repeatedly been amended since 2021. Each time, more control, less transparency, faster takedowns, fewer safeguards. So the questions are unavoidable. Are we building a system where platforms censor first and ask questions later? Is due process being replaced by compliance pressure? Are journalists, creators, citizens being nudged into silence? Joining me is Nikhil Pahwa, founder of Media Nama, a journalist and a digital rights activist. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And you have been one of the critiques regarding the new rules that have come up that were introduced on March 30th. You have said that these new rules are to the lead to the infrastructure of mass censorship. Can you tell us
Yes.
a bit more about that? Can you elaborate on that?
So actually, these rules enhance the infrastructure for mass censorship that already exists because that has come up through multiple amendments of the IT Act over the last uh, 6 years now. Actually, since 5 years since 2021, there have been about this is the seventh amendment, as far as I remember, to the IT rules. And what's happening is that whatever protections we used to have for free speech under the Supreme Court judgment back in 2015, bit by bit, they have been completely dismantled because there is this ecosystem or this entire infrastructure of censorship that is being created, which has speed, which has scale, which has scope. The scope under which speech can be taken down on the internet has expanded substantially. The number of agencies that can ask for speech to be taken down online has expanded substantially. There are now mechanisms like the Sahyog portal, which basically create a hotline between a platform, and there's 70 platforms onboarded on the Sahyog portal. And on the other side, you have multiple government agencies, about seven of them, central government, all the states, that can issue notices for getting speech taken down online. The Sahyog portal basically allows that very speedy delivery of notices to platforms to take down speech. So that's when speech gets taken down. The other part of it is blocking, which is under a different clause of the IT Act, which is basically secret government blocking. Now, the speed at which that needs to get taken down has been increased to 3 hours, and there's talk from the government from increasing that speed to now, to 1 hour. It's not in these rules, but I'm expecting that it will be rules in the future where that's going to happen. And then the mechanisms by which platforms can be bound to the orders of the government have been expanded substantially. So they're saying that under these current rules, that they're saying that circulars and advisories are now legally binding on platforms, which has never been the case in the past. This is a mechanism for bypassing parliamentary scrutiny, because typically governments have to make rules, they have to put them up for public consultations, those have to be held, uh, you know, um, they have to be accountable and transparent about the comments that are coming in. And then the new regulations have to be made, and those have to be tabled in Parliament, which can be scrutinized by Parliament. But circulars are not being scrutinized by Parliament. So there's this entire mechanism of throttling speech, of censoring speech, and removing accountability that is being put into place by the government of India.
So, if I understand this right, because this is a circular, and if this is passed or if this is implemented, it would mean, like you mentioned about the platforms, that let's say any individual person uploading something which is related to news or current affairs or their commentary on it, the
Yeah.
government can ask the platform to take it down, and now the time has been reduced to 3 hours, so their post goes down in 3 hours, or you're expecting that it will go down in 1 hour, and will the person get the
Subsequently go down 1 hour.
yeah.
Subsequently, it will go down to 1 hour. That's the plan. That's what a report from Somirendra Barak in the Indian Express said, quoting sources, that the plan is to reduce the timeline from 3 hours to 1 hour. I mean, so let me explain what this shift in timeline for takedown and censorship means. Basically, what happens is when a platform gets an order from the government, they have to assess the legality of that order and decide whether they want to take it down or not. So, in some cases, under one particular law called Section 79A, they can choose not to act on it, and therefore, for that piece of content that's sought to be taken down, or that piece of speech that is sought to be censored, they can say that, okay, this order is illegal from the government, and so therefore we don't need to act on it. There's a Today, when the timeline shrinks to 3 hours, then they need to act. They don't have time to think, because sometimes you get 40, 50, 60, 100 orders in one go. How do you, and all of them come at the same time, how do you then you can't rationally think about it in 3 hours, right? You can't get a legal assessment in 3 hours. So that compliance timeline has shrunk drastically at one level, and someone in that organization can potentially be held liable and sent to court. So the platforms act first, censor first, and almost never think about it because there's no point. On the other side are secret blocking orders, which used to have a provision of emergency orders. Now, when content has to be taken down in 3 hours, the gap between a standard regular order, which can potentially be challenged, and there's a review committee for it, that has now shrunk. The review committee has no purpose pretty much, because every order has to be executed straight away because there's no time to think. So it's almost as if the government says this has to be censored. Platforms can no longer push back, and every order is an emergency order. So effectively, and that's why if you see over the last month and a half, since the last set of IT rules that were announced, I think Feb 20th, since then, the amount of censorship you're seeing on social media is increased drastically. People are publishing notices that they've got for getting their content taken down, and many times it is for frivolous things. Sometimes it is for satire. There are comedians who've been censored. Though satire and humor is legal speech. Criticizing a government functionary, maybe the prime minister, is legal. But what we are seeing right now is that there is no accountability in the government, and so things are just getting censored left, right, and center. So I've it spent a couple of hours, and I put together 32 instances of censorship, which either people sent to me or they've been made public, and I sent them to the ministry saying, please explain each and every one of these instances of censorship. They haven't responded till now. But the fact is, there's no accountability of the ministry when it comes to censorship.
So even in this rules, like who is going to be accountable for, let's say, a wrongful takedown of some content under the system?
So the problem is that in order to address a wrongful takedown, someone will have to go to court. So two internet users went to court, to the Delhi High Court, and got their accounts restored. But the speech that was censored has been censored. It's not, the court has not allowed that to be put back up because that is contested speech now in court. So there have been instances where rules have been challenged in the past also. So there was a case in the Bombay High Court under a government fact check unit, which under these new rules, which are currently under consultation, are being looked at through something called the Interdepartmental Committee, which is a reinstation of the fact check unit. The Bombay High Court took 1 year to strike it down. Since in that period, two new sets of rules came up. So by the time the court strikes down one thing, the government comes up with two more. So the legal system is not built to actually address the lawlessness of rulemaking that is taking place right now.
So in a way, the government still gets their way, either in this way
Absolutely. I
or
mean,
that.
so the question is, how many times will people challenge things? How many people will challenge things? So it's almost as if the government is saying, I have the ability to make laws faster than you can take them down. Do whatever you want. The moment you get something taken down, three more things will come up. They will change one small thing here, one small thing there, and say, this is completely different. The Sayo portal, which is that hotline between platforms and the government, and for agencies for taking down, has been challenged by the court. I think some courts have said that this is fine, even though there is no law backing this particular portal, and it speeds up censorship. So what you're seeing is this fairly large and robust sort of infrastructure for censorship that has come up, which is difficult to challenge. It operates with speed, with scale. It has substantial scope, and it is only being expanded. I don't want to focus on the current rules, which have their own problems, but these rules are just adding one more layer on top of the infrastructure that exists, and we might probably have, and I have no doubt that we will have more layers coming up. Um, and so the way I'm looking at it is the Supreme Court needs to step up here because they are the court of last resort. And the government is moving faster than the high courts can deal with it. So they need, and many parts of these rules are also not being challenged, or the challenges are stuck in the lower courts. But the censorship of speech has now reached a stage where there needs to be oversight from the Supreme Court from a constitutional perspective, because our fundamental right to free speech is getting suppressed using these platforms. The platforms basically are carriers of our speech. And the IT secretary in a meeting went out and said that public access, access and is basically public infrastructure, which means it can be regulated. It can be. So, what is public infrastructure? It's like roads. It's like highways. Are you going to? So you are licensing access. You can shut down access whenever you want. Whereas the historical notion of looking at speech is rights first, that you look at it from the perspective of we have a fundamental right to free speech. There are some small restrictions which are feasible, but what the government is saying is this speech belongs to us. Your access to speech belongs to us. Access to express yourself belongs to us, and we can restrict it in whichever way you want. And that's the problem, and that's why this is a constitutional issue, because the state has gone rogue, and the government and the courts, the Supreme Court needs to step in.
And who do you think does the new rules affect the most if it's implemented?
That's the thing, we don't know. I mean, it affects everyone who speaks online. One of the provisions here is that anyone who comments on news and current affairs can be censored by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting.
And that's
So
like almost every
effectively,
citizen at one point does comment on current affairs.
correct. So everyone gets affected, and that's why I keep saying this has reached a stage where you need a constitutional intervention, a constitutional level intervention from the Supreme Court of India.
And also, you recently had a meeting with the secretary, IT secretary S. Krishnan. Did the meeting clarify any of the doubts or any of these apprehensions?
No, nothing. I mean, it was, my sense was this meeting was done for the sake of saying that we did consultations with multiple stakeholders, X number of stakeholders attended, and therefore we have clarified issues. But the secretary basically said nothing meaningful. I pointed out all of these issues to him. I have sent all of these questions to him. I told him I've sent you questions. We have received no response. Uh, and he didn't address any of these questions or the issues that I raised in the meeting. The moment I finished, he moved on to the next speaker. And in some cases, he may have expressed some points or the other, but the meeting was um, not a public meeting, so to speak, in the ministry's view. So, and I want to respect the privacy of the people who attended this meeting. But to my mind, these meetings should not be secret. They should be public because the people get impacted, the speech gets impacted. The ministry is not responding to RTIs. They are not disclosing submissions made on public consultations, which they're supposed to. And even the email that we got for this meeting said that the comments and submissions in this meeting are going to be held in fiduciary capacity. And so, therefore, that means that they were trying to claim an exemption under the Right to Information Act. So, they're just trying to be opaque about it. And that's the thing. We are seeing a vast amount of secrecy and lack of accountability on something that's as important as our speech. And we feel helpless in terms of figuring out how to deal with this. And I've had several conversations with people, with journalists, with internet users, some of them anonymous. They messaged me online anonymously, whose innocuous posts have been taken down, and they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
I remember in 2013, when this issue was similar issue was there, when two girls had been put in jail for something that they said on Facebook, and we were talking about something called 66A. Um, at that point in time, around that time, I noticed that even Kuwait, which does censor online speech, and it's not a democracy.
Yeah.
They have, when they block a page, they put up a notice explaining who has ordered the block and how that block, who to contact so that the block may be removed. Uh, a democracy like ours has zero accountability for censorship here. That's the problem. And in fact, at that point in time, our current prime minister, who was then chief minister of Gujarat, had actually blackened his Twitter display picture in protest against the censorship that was happening under 66A. So I'd like my prime minister to stand up and tell his ministry to not censor speech.
So again, when you
And
say,
not create these rules and not create this infrastructure for censorship that they're creating. The prime minister needs to step up as well.
so when you say this, it's like now if a post is taken down of a regular person online, or if an influencer for that matter, and not everybody has such a huge legal team, or not everybody has this sort of understanding to be able to understand what to do if their post is taken down. So do they have the option of taking the post up, like going somewhere so that they know what's going to happen? Because they might not have, as per these rules, they might not even have the information that who asked to block it. Is that right? Which ministry, which department has asked the post to go
We
down?
have no idea. No information is given either to the platform or to the user. In fact, when the Supreme Court heard this case about censorship in 2013 and 14 and 15, 14 and 15, Justice Nariman, who wrote that beautiful judgment, said that if the person whose speech is being censored or blocked is identifiable, then they must, of course, be given a hearing before this review committee. Nobody gets a hearing. So effectively, they are in violation of that verdict of the Supreme Court of India.
And so the user also has no approach. As of now, it does not look like there is any way that
We can't do
we can do it.
we can't do anything.
And then, how do you view it that on one hand, when the West Asia crisis was going on, the government just said that, the TRP ratings should not be published. But on the other hand, it seems like this is a blank censorship for all social media users, specifically when they talk about politics or current affairs for that matter. How do you see the fairness
I,
of
I, I, I really can't comment on how the government thinks. I don't know how they think. Right now, I think the way I see it is that what they're building looks like it is going to be here to stay. Whether it's this government or the next government, every government is going to be in a position to use it.
yeah.
It's not like the UPA government didn't do censorship. We went to court on that issue and we won against them. And even at that time, they defended it. So governments come and go. It's not about this government, it's not about this prime minister, it's not about. I'm talking about what happens to the speech of the citizens of our country going forward in the future. And if because this is very, very close to, it's not there yet, but it's very close to how China operates. The speed of censorship is very fast over there as well. There's automated blocking of certain keywords. For example, you're not allowed to make fun of Xi Jinping. He was being made fun of using the phrase by likening him to Winnie the Pooh. So the phrase Winnie the Pooh is blocked in China. No one can use that phrase online. So we are not there yet, but we are constantly, regularly getting closer. There is no firewall, but firewall is more automated and persistent and consistent. In this case, there is a fire hose of censorship that's coming at us, where uh, things are constantly being taken down, and we are seeing it on a daily basis. Even the day I walked out of that meeting with the IT secretary, I was on Twitter and I was looking at messages, and there was commentary um, about the SIR in West Bengal, where voters have been disenfranchised. And Innumerable posts had a line at the bottom that said something like, uh, this content has been blocked in your location following government orders, or something like that, right? So the speed does this. It allows them to search and order censorship at a very fast pace.
So it can literally be for anybody who just posts a funny thing or just is being critical to the government, irrespective of which government they are doing, because the opposition might use it in this state, but at the national
It's
level,
not just it's not just at the national level, it's also at state
yeah.
level, because state governments also have the same power of censoring speech through the Sahyog portal. So that's what I'm saying. The scale, the scope, the size, the frequency, speed, everything has been expanded into an infrastructure.
Do you think this can create already a very self-censored way of posting, because with these rules coming up and already censorship going on, posts being blocked, does this already create a problem, let's say, to citizen journalism or influencers who their base is about current affairs? Will it create a self-censorship already because of these rules now, like somebody would think harder before posting something?
So I'll give you an example. The Prime Minister had inaugurated an airport, and students were bussed in from colleges to attend the inauguration. There was someone who made a vlog or a video blog of that. Now, I don't know whether you call it citizen journalism. I don't know what citizen journalism is. For me, anyone who reports uh, anything that's happening, news is doing journalism as long as they follow the tenets of journalism, right? So this is reporting on facts, and some student did it. That content got censored online because it showed how this entire thing was being orchestrated. So I don't understand why the government is so touchy about facts being revealed just because the facts are inconvenient, right? There are inconvenient truths in the world. Governments have all the power, citizens do not. They need to face up to this inconvenience and deal with it, not suppress it. Because they also try and access private spaces like WhatsApp, which are end-to-end encrypted. They have a law that's trying to force WhatsApp to identify the uh, originator of a message so that they can go after them. But WhatsApp's end-to-end encryption doesn't allow that. So WhatsApp has gone to court, to the Supreme Court, about this particular clause. But the government is been trying to give itself the power to remove privacy on private messaging platforms as well, because they want to be able to see everything. So they can censor everything. That's what it looks like right now, based on these regulations. And look, like I said, it's not about this government or that government. Go back to UPN, and I remember Kapil Sibal, as IT minister, had called in platforms and asked them to do pre-censorship of content, saying that things should be censored before it gets published. Um, Manish Tiwari, in a dissent note that he wrote to the data protection bill when he's in the joint parliamentary committee, also said that social media platforms should be treated like publishers and held liable for our speech. Now, no platform will survive that liability. So, unfortunately, politicians are try to control speech all the time, and it is our fundamental right to free speech, which is enshrined in our constitution, that protects us from this. My point is that protection now needs to be upheld. It needs to be protected by the Supreme Court because governments will keep trying to violate it. They violated it in the UPA era, and the Shreya Singhal judgment put the government in check. We need the Supreme Court to put this government in check now, and any other government in the future that tries to suppress speech, they need to be put into check. Right now, they're moving far too fast for any high court to be able to deal with this.
This sounds like there is clear censorship by design, knowing that not everybody is going to go to court and there's not going to be so much time or resource for a regular citizen to
And
be able to do this.
and that is why I call it an infrastructure for censorship, because it is an infrastructure that's operating at speed, scale, and scope.
And do you think this time has the public, do they have enough knowledge about this, or are the oppositions, journalists for that matter, talking enough about these IT rules?
Yeah, I really can't comment on that.
And before we end, what's going to be the long-term cost to public discourse if the new rule stands?
Look, at this point in time, I think speech that we see on public, on social media, is largely going to get shifted to private platforms. Yeah, it's going to get censored on YouTube. It's going to get censored on X. It's going to get censored on Instagram. It's going to get censored on Facebook. That's already happening.
Yeah.
When that happens, it moves offline. It moves off the public web and into the private web. And the government can't see what's going on there, at least for now. Then they'll try and get access that. What's also happened is that people use VPN sometimes to access speech that is censored in India because a large amount of speech is not censored in India, except we don't know how much because there's no transparency and accountability from the government. So, as a consequence of that, eventually they will start blocking VPNs as well. A few years ago, they blocked VPNs as well, and like I think last January, not this January, last January, they blocked about 14 VPN apps in the country. So this is, like I said, this is all a part of things that are getting done in order to restrict speech, and and alongside the infrastructure for censorship with Aadhaar, we're also seeing the creation of an infrastructure for surveillance. So these are the makings of a totalitarian state. That is very clear. And unfortunately, uh, unless our courts step in, they've granted us the fundamental right to privacy. They've in a 9-0 verdict, but they also upheld Aadhaar and the other infrastructure that's getting created around it. I'm afraid we need the Supreme Court to do better here.
Is the last sort solution over here the Supreme to be, if the Supreme Court takes a suo moto of these cases or says something about this, is that the last resort, or can public do something else, especially with the new rules coming?
I can't say.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Thank you.